Right now, we're going to move on to another attorney who's also been working really hard and staying busy, just as busy as ever during these times, Timera Bullock. And Timera is going to tell us some common issues and problems that she's been seeing over the last month or so. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of solace that you may not be alone. So, Timera, hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joe. So I made a list of some of the common issues that have been communicated to me by the parents. And one of the main reason, or one of the main issues that I'm noticing with parents is the lack of support with children that have either ADHD, autism support, and just redirecting the behaviors with that, because many of the schools have not developed a program to augment or to help parents with this issue while they're at home with their children. So that's one of the main issues that I've noticed with parents, and that they're not able to deal with their children and redirecting them for such a long period of time, while they give them this individualized educational services that they need for each of the students. There have been reports sent to me, and there was a couple letters, one from the Norristown School District, where they were implementing a flexible IEP program. And what that pretty much was meant for the parents was that their child would get 30 minutes a week of individualized service on Google Classroom or the equivalent. And the parent indicated to me that that is definitely a lot less than what they were normally given for their child, in addition to having an hour to reach out to the special education provider. So one of the advices that I would give for that would be to kind of use the system so there is that hour time with the parent can meet with a special education director. And most people are not using these resources. So I would definitely encourage parents to utilize the resource and actually log in during that hour or whatever time period that the special education provider or even the teacher that is giving that class, because they can give you additional resources given the special circumstance where you have 30 minutes a week, which is not sufficient to properly reinforce anything for your child. So that was one of the tips that I would give. And also to help with that, if you could get with your child and do the class material before that meeting, then you can bring those questions directly to the teacher or the special education director with that specific question to help with that specific issue. There's also been a lot of technical difficulties. I know that for many parents, they are still waiting to get a computer. So the schools are trying to work with parents to give them access to technology that would enable them to log on and do classwork for their students. But there's a delay in the demand. And so you have many parents who have, say, 3 kids in the home, and they only have 2 computers. And so then there's the difficulty in scheduling on how to educate 3 children, some of which have multiple disabilities, and having them log on, meet with their teachers, and do the classwork. So that was another difficulty that was brought to me by one of my clients. And how they worked through that was just creating a schedule. So they would have one child on the morning and then another child later on the evening, as their schedule permit, to give them that time to all have that access to education and to program that way. So that was one of the things that I noticed from the clients that I have currently dealing with COVID. The other thing is that the school day is extremely limited now. So whereas they would have 6 to 8 hours of school, now they're given the equivalent of 2 hours of work. And so then many parents are struggling with what to do with their children in the meantime. And so as Dr. Waldorf said, just breaking up their days. or making it more interactive. Um, I found that that was helpful. I even had my sister over this past week, and I kind of did some of that for her to help break up her lessons or just doing a subject a day just to drag out the academic week because they give you packages to complete. And as far as with the packages that the school does give now, they're not being graded until May for the Philadelphia School District at least. And so what they're doing now is extending the third marking period, so there will no longer be a fourth marking period, but starting in May, they will be grading, and those grades will go to the third semester. So it'll be an extended third semester without a fourth semester. And so I've found a lack of motivation really for the parents to actually do the work until May because there's no grade or feedback really being given for the students. And I think one of the other issues with having virtual learning is that many of the students are now forced to have to type out or do other ways to submit their homework because it is all online. And I noticed that while many grades, depending on what grade your child is in, they have a technological component where they're learning how to type, they're learning how to use the internet. Many people up until now had not had that access or the inclination to do work online. And so you have the parents struggling with working the whatever platform the school is using, and the students struggling with having now to type in their response where before they had to handwrite it. And so then you have that shift and that difference in how you're actually performing the work. And so the fear is that many more parents will be doing the work for their children instead of having the patience to allow their child to type, even if they had like, the two finger, or as my nephew did, like he just types with one hand. And so there is that frustration with that also, and just having to now deal with tech where, as Bradley said, you'll have old school paper and pencil. So those are some of the main things that I've been noticing with my clients now dealing with the COVID transition and this new normal.
Thanks, Timera. Have you, what's your experience been communicating with other attorneys? Have they been accessible? Have they been avoiding you? How's that process been?
Okay. For the most part, I have not had any issues getting in contact with the attorneys that are working the cases that I'm on. Many times they're at home also, and we're just scheduling phone conferences in the majority. So I've not had any issues dealing with counsel. There has been many issues and delays in getting the records for the students because the schools are closed, and some files, especially behavioral things, are inaccessible to the council. So it takes a little bit longer to get access to those documents. So that's the only real difference that I'm noticing in this time.
Okay, cool. And then, yeah. All right. Thanks, Tamara. Any other advice or any other input you think parents can benefit from today?
I guess the last thing, as I said earlier, was just to utilize the teachers that you have access to, because I have a lot of teacher friends and they are quite bored at this time. And so they are more than willing, many of them, to help at this time, even if they may not be that your normal person that you would contact for special education. They're definitely willing to extend that additional time to work with students. So I would try to go through them as much as possible.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great to hear. And I've, overall, teachers that I know, the same. I think teachers are really willing and eager to work. I feel like if there's any problems, it's not on the teacher's end. I feel like it's different barriers they faced. I know at first with this, teachers were kind of doing what they could, and then they got a directive, at least in Philly, at first from above, to not do anything, right? Because I think Philly's position originally, and this goes to a question from Cheryl Whalen regarding any proposed changes to IDEA due to the pandemic. Philly's position originally was let's do nothing, because IDEA is really an equitable civil rights type statute that wants to make sure that children with special needs that require extra supports and services in school have access to them the same way that general education students have access, right? So teachers wanted to work, circling back to what I'm talking about here. Teachers want it to work, but the school district affiliate originally said, you know, it's better for everyone to do nothing because then we don't have to worry about any equitable issues. If everyone's doing nothing, we know where we stand. No one's getting anything, which is awful.